I did something. Something bad. I think. I killed her." Those were the words that stumbled out of a man no one suspected, about a girl no one realized was missing, involving a crime that, until that moment, had never been reported. The town? Peaceful. The man? Quiet. The victim? Vanished before anyone noticed. This is the story of a confession that cracked open a case that had never been opened, and exposed a horror that had gone undetected for nearly a decade. On a foggy Monday morning in February 2021, a man named Ellis Warren walked into the Reed County Sheriff's Department in rural Indiana. He wasn't on the run. He wasn't under suspicion. He wasn't even being questioned. He had simply walked in. Alone. A clerk greeted him without much interest. Just another middle-aged man with weary eyes and a long coat. She asked how she could help. His response made her freeze. "I think I need to report a murder. One I committed." She buzzed in a detective immediately. Within 10 minutes, Ellis was sitting in interview room 2, his hands trembling slightly. Detective Paul Kramer, a 19-year veteran of the force, expected the usual: someone high, mentally ill, or craving attention. False confessions weren't rare. But what he heard next wasn't attention-seeking. It was specific, detailed, chilling. Ellis Warren was confessing to the murder of a girl named Katie, but there was no missing person report. No record of a Katie disappearing. No open cases matching his description. Which raised the most disturbing question of all. Had someone truly vanished and no one ever noticed? Detective Kramer leaned forward, skeptical but curious. "When did this happen?" "I think it was 2012, Ellis whispered. "I can't remember the exact day. July, maybe. It was hot. I know that." "And this girl, Katie, who was she to you?" Ellis hesitated. "She was just a kid. 13 maybe. I didn't know her. She was walking along Route 6. I pulled over to ask if she needed help. I didn't mean to. I swear to God I didn't plan it." He started to cry. Kramer studied him closely. "What did you do, Ellis?" "I grabbed her. I took her to an old shack, my uncle's hunting cabin. No one had been there in years. I tied her up. She screamed so much at first. Then she stopped." "Then what?" "She was gone the next morning. I panicked. Buried her behind the cabin. I wrapped her in a blanket. I put a cross over it." Detective Kramer felt the room go cold. This man had just confessed, in agonizing detail, to the abduction, imprisonment, and murder of a child no one ever reported missing. There were no open cases, no posters, no family searching. But Ellis wasn't lying. Not about the cabin, not about the road, not about the feeling of guilt that had apparently haunted him for nearly 10 years. Detectives sent a team to the location Ellis described, an abandoned hunting shack deep in the woods off County Road 213. The structure was collapsed in places, overgrown with vines and brush. But the minute forensics began clearing the undergrowth behind the building, they saw it. A cross. Wooden, weather-worn, barely standing. Beside it, a depression in the earth, just like Ellis had said. Within hours, they unearthed what remained of a young girl's body, wrapped in a deteriorated blanket. There was no clothing, no identification, but the skeletal frame, based on dental development and bone size, was consistent with a child around 12 to 14 years old. Ellis Warren hadn't made it up. The murder was real, but it came with a chilling realization. No one had ever reported her missing. Now came the hard part. Investigators had a body, but no identity. Ellis knew almost nothing about the girl. He claimed she said her name was Katie. She told him she had run away from her aunt. That's all. No last name, no address, no school, no local missing children from that period named Katie, no match on dental records. The girl was a ghost. The FBI joined the case, pulling missing children reports from surrounding states. They worked backward from July 2012, flagging every female runaway between the ages of 11 and 15. Hundreds of files were reviewed. Most had been found or returned home. One stood out. Caitlin Ramirez, 13 years old, missing from Springfield, Illinois. Last seen July 5, 2012, reportedly running away after an argument with her foster parents. No confirmed sightings since. Her case had been closed in 2015 under the assumption she'd likely become a long-term runaway. Authorities believed she might have entered the foster system under a new name or aged out. The file was never prioritized. Until now. Caitlin's case file contained one critical item, a DNA sample from a school nurse visit months before her disappearance. Forensic analysts ran the sample against the remains from the woods. The results came back positive. The girl behind the shack, the one no one even knew had been murdered, was Caitlin Ramirez. Her foster parents, Paul and Melissa Harding, were stunned when agents knocked on their door. They admitted Caitlin had run away before. On July 5, 2012, she stormed out after a fight about her cell phone and didn't return. They reported her missing, yes, but after a few days, the attitude of law enforcement shifted. Caitlin was labeled a habitual runaway. By the third report, police were telling the Hardings to wait it out. Eventually, they did. Life moved on. Caitlin faded into silence. What they didn't know was that within 48 hours of running away, Caitlin had been abducted and murdered. While investigators worked to confirm Caitlin's identity, another team turned its attention to the man who'd turned himself in. Ellis Warren was 47 years old. Never married. No kids. Lived alone. Worked as a night janitor at a local community college. No criminal record. Not even a speeding ticket. People in town described him as shy, odd, quiet. A loner. The kind of man you never noticed. The kind who could disappear into a crowd or into the woods without a trace. Ellis admitted that he'd driven Route 6 regularly back in 2012, visiting his late uncle's cabin. On July 6th, he saw Caitlin walking alone and pulled over. "I don't know what came over me," he told detectives. "I just snapped." In court documents, prosecutors described his crime as opportunistic, predatory, and hidden in plain sight. But Ellis wasn't finished talking. He had one more secret to share. A week into his incarceration, Ellis requested to speak to detectives again. What he said sent chills through the entire task force. She wasn't the only one. There was another girl. Before her. Detectives stared in silence. Her name was Hannah. Or maybe Haley. I can't remember exactly. She was younger. 10. Maybe. That one. That one I never buried. Where is she? The well. Behind the red barn. Off Hillcrest Road. My uncle's other property. Detectives rushed to the location, an overgrown patch of land 30 miles from the first crime scene. The well had long been dry, covered by a rusted metal plate. When they lifted it and shone lights down, their blood ran cold. A small human skull lay at the bottom. They pulled up what little remained. Female. Likely 9 to 11 years old. No ID. No name. Once again, no matching missing child report. The horror of what they were uncovering was nearly incomprehensible. A man who confessed to killing 2 children, both of whom had vanished so quietly that their disappearances barely registered in the system. And Ellis wasn't finished yet. Ellis began talking more frequently, offering small fragments. Another name, Maria. A girl he claimed was older, maybe 15. Said she got in his truck at a gas station in 2010. He wasn't sure where she went. He described a necklace, a scar, a birthmark, details no fantasist would invent. He talked about how no one ever came looking. That was the part that haunted him the most, he said. No one ever came. Not for any of them. I kept waiting for someone to notice. But no one did. Ellis Warren may have been a killer, but his words revealed something even darker. A society that didn't notice when its most vulnerable vanished. Runaways. Foster children. Girls with no one to track them. He hadn't chosen high-profile targets. He chose the forgotten. And he was right. They were never reported properly. They disappeared into system failures, paper trails, and indifference. By early 2023, Ellis Warren was charged with 2 counts of murder, Caitlin Ramirez and Jane Doe No. 2. The third girl, Maria, had not yet been identified. He pled guilty on both counts, sparing the families and authorities a drawn-out trial. His only request? Bury them right. Put their names on something. They deserve that. He was sentenced to life in prison without parole. But what disturbed the public most wasn't Ellis himself. It was the realization that his crimes went undiscovered not because he was smart, but because no one was paying attention. In the wake of Ellis's confession, a national review of long-term missing cases was launched. Over 2,000 entries were reopened. Over 70% were classified as runaways. Less than 10% had recent follow-up. Some were later found safe. Others were not. 3 additional remains in neighboring states matched missing girls who vanished between 2009 and 2013. All had vague connections to regions Ellis had traveled through. The true number of his victims may never be known. But what is known is this. Ellis Warren wasn't a criminal mastermind. He didn't travel across the country leaving cryptic clues. He wasn't chasing fame or infamy. He was just a quiet man in a quiet town who quietly preyed on the invisible. And he would have gotten away with it forever if he hadn't confessed. To this day, no one fully understands why Ellis turned himself in. Some say guilt. Others say loneliness. One guard claimed he heard Ellis whisper, late one night in his cell, "I just wanted someone to remember her." Just one person. Maybe that's the truth. Or maybe the deeper truth is this. Sometimes, the most chilling crimes aren't the ones we can't solve. They're the ones we never even know happened.